Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark of the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 2022 Japanese animated sports comedy drama, The First Slam Dunk.
頑張った。
Hey, well, that's all we can ask, right? Doing the best I can up here. The First Slam Dunk has a 100% fresh rating from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a 98% fresh rating from the audience. I'm currently reviewing every movie that has a 100% fresh rating from the critics in chronological order, and once I'm done, I will rank them from worst to best. This movie is based off a very popular Japanese manga, and I believe there was also a television series involved that ran for 4 years that was called something like the Slam Dunk series. Now, I did a little bit of research, which I normally don't do any research at all, but I did a little bit of research and I found out that this franchise, the Slam Dunk franchise and all of its properties really changed the lives of a lot of people in Japan and the way they look at the sport of basketball. It's exciting, it's funny, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of suspense, the animation is spectacular, and I think that it really kind of kick-started the idea of basketball into people's lives who would not normally have thought about the sport, and it really gave them a love for the game, and I'm all for that. I'm all for giving people a love for sports that they didn't have before, so I appreciate the movie for doing that. That being said, I will say that I personally am not a fan at all of basketball. I haven't seen a real basketball game since Michael Jordan retired. So that's probably, mid to late 90s. I don't even remember when that was. That being said, since it's been that long since I've seen a basketball game, I did recognize one of the players in this movie was supposed to be modeled after Dennis Rodman, which was very exciting. Dennis Rodman is quite a character, and he was in this movie. The guy who's modeled after him was as well. He was a rebounder, a rebounding king. He was kind of crazy on the basketball field, basketball court, not basketball field, on the basketball court, which this character was as well. So it was exciting having that kind of character in the movie. The animation in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. Some of the best animation I've ever seen in my life. It's up there with the movie Mind Game, which I also thought was some of the most impressive art ever in a movie. So the basketball court scenes are all done in 3D CGI, and then the non-basketball court scenes are done in 2D animation, which blended together work very well, and it really does help paint the scenes. It helps tell the story. It helps for the basketball scenes. It really gets you into the game. It really gets you involved. You feel like you're there. You feel like you're on the court with these players, going through the trials, the tribulations, going through the heartaches, the ups, the downs, the roller coaster ride that they're going through throughout this game. You feel like you're really there with them. And then for like the 2D animation parts, I feel like that really helps drive the story a lot better. I would rather see that part of the movie in 2D animation. So I thought they did a lot of really good choices here, and the outcome was absolutely phenomenal. That being said, since I am unfamiliar with like how basketball really works today, there was one thing about it that kind of bothered me and honestly was a little bit boring to me, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, and that was the idea of a team going on a run and like getting all these unanswered points, and then the other team coming back, getting the same amount of unanswered points, and then we're gonna go back and get another. Like it was usually like a 20-point spread. It looked like where the Shinoa, I think that's what the bad guys in this movie are called, the opposing team, were 20 points ahead, and then the Shouku, which is Ryota's team, who's the main character, would make back the 20 points, and then the other team would get those 20 points back, and then he would have to get the 20 points again, and throughout this entire time, the other team is not scoring. These are just like huge runs that both teams are going on, and I remember basketball not being that way. Now, maybe they just did this to make the movie more exciting, but for me, it would be more exciting if they were going back and forth, scoring throughout the entire game, fighting for the ball constantly, and not this whole like runs that they're going on. And as they're going on these runs, each team's trying to like strategize with each other on how to stop the offense, how how to stop these runs, and they keep coming up with different ways of doing it. The other team would stop that way, so it was like a nice little game of chess on how to stop these runs that they're going on. But I don't know, it wasn't all that part of it wasn't all that exciting to me, though. I did like the chess match between the two teams where they're trying to outthink each other and they're trying to come up with new moves that neither of them have seen before. They're subbing in players and they're putting players in positions that they're not usually supposed to be in. They're guarding players that you would normally not guard with other players. And I mean, they're doing all these crazy maneuverings trying to figure each other out, and you could tell that they're much better matched up against each other than what they thought they would be. So Ryoto's team is supposed to be very undermatched here. I think this is like the high school championship, but the other team was supposed to run away with this easily because they're the reigning champions. So it's definitely an underdog story, but they ended up being a lot better than anyone thought they would, and they were the scrappy fighters throughout the entire movie. And then I mean, the movie kind of ends how you think it would end, but basically what the story is in this movie is we have a character named Ryota who's in high school. We meet him first when he's a very young child, and his father has recently passed away. So after his father passes away, his older brother, who's 3 years older than him, who is a big basketball star throughout the neighborhood. I think he also is in high school basketball. He's very well known, very well liked by everyone. He tells Ryota that he's going to kind of take over the helm in the family. He's going to be the new man of the house. And it's up to him and his brother to take care of his mom now. But very soon after their father dies, he also dies. The older brother also dies in a boating accident. So now Ryota is left to take care of the family and also to try to live up to his brother's shadows as far as like how good he is at basketball. So he's constantly trying to prove himself that he's just as good as his brother was at basketball, and he's constantly trying to prove to everyone that he belongs playing basketball. He's trying to prove to himself that he's just as good as his brother was. He's trying to prove to his mom that he's just as good as his brother was. And throughout the entire movie, through these 2D animation scenes, we see a lot of the characters, a lot of their motivations, a lot of why they're in the game, a lot of what basketball means to them. There's a lot of flashbacks. Ryota's flashbacks are obviously the ones that are focused on the most because he's the main character of this movie, so you learn a lot about him. You learn about how he's a really small basketball player as far as height goes, and how that's always been a problem for him, and it's been like a hurdle that he's been having to get through his entire life, where people do not believe that he is actually going to make it and be that star player that his brother was, because his brother had this big height advantage on him. And basically how he has been able to overcome this and how he's been able to endure and succeed and finally get to this point to where he's at, to where he's playing this championship basketball game. The guy with red hair, the basketball player with the red hair, basically provides all the comedy relief in this movie. I mean, there's some weird stuff he does. He and it's all like anime stuff where there's a lot of overreacting type of things with these characters, or like they're over dramatic with things. Like he wants to fire up the crowd, so he like jumps on top of this table and shouts to everyone, "Hey, we gotta win!" And like he looks at his team, he's like, "Okay, now we gotta win." It's like, I don't know if they would allow that kind of showboating in a real basketball game. Probably not, but it's a movie, so you gotta take some liberties. But there's a lot of scenes where like they're talking to each other, or they're talking to like the opposite teammates, like taunting them and stuff. And to me, a lot of the things that they say, a lot of the dialogue in this movie just like screams anime, because you wouldn't get this kind of dialogue and this kind of reactions and these facial reactions and everything from these characters if this was not an anime movie. It's definitely like a hallmark and a trademark of that type of art, and it's definitely in this movie. Even though it's done in CGI for the basketball scenes, it's still there, and I'm for it. I'm not a huge fan of like the over dramatic, overacting type of a lot of the scenes in this movie, but it's fine. but like if I'm going to be honest, the basketball game, it's a 2 hour game, and the movie's 2 hours, so you're basically in the game, and the clock's winding down, and basically it's the suspense of constantly being shown the clock and wondering like how they're going to overcome this point total. And then you have the coaches and the players saying, well, we just got to get 10 points within 10 points, and then we can make up the rest of the total. So that adds to the suspense because you're counting the points with them as they're scoring these points, waiting for them to get to 10. And then once they get to 10, the other team goes up 20 again. Just like they did before. So for me, like, I don't know. I felt like this game that they're in was a little bit too long. It was stretched out a little bit too much. There were parts where I was actually a little bit bored. I know I'm going to get roasted for this because everyone loves this movie. Like, this is a critically loved movie. It's loved by critics. It's loved by the audience. People, like, this, the sun rises and sets on this movie from what I understand. But honestly, I thought parts of it were boring. Like, even though the art was great, the art, like, really brought me into the movie. There was a lot of suspense that brought me into the movie. There's only so much of, like, the 20-point runs that I can watch where I know they're going to make up. I know they're going to make it up the rest, even though the team, like, not even halfway through the movie, the Ryoto's team has practically like given up and they've stopped trying. You know they're going to make up the points. It's going to happen. You're just like watching them be sad about themselves and like be depressed about it and just waiting for them to like make up these points when you know it's going to happen. And then they make up the points and you're like, okay, great. Like, we're getting there. Like, they've almost won the game. And then you look at the time on the bottom of the movie and it's got an hour and a half left. Well, I guess they're going to probably fall behind again. There's still an hour and a half left in this movie. So there's going to be another 20-point swing here somewhere. But I think the animation saves it. The guy with the red hair saved it because he was so comical. He was so funny. At the end of the movie, he like hurts his back. At the end of the movie, jumping like through a table trying to get a rebound, which I think Rodman actually did also in real life. Which is crazy. And he's on the court and he's having like these back spasms and he's like constantly like having these spasms. I'm like, hey, I do that when I get up in the morning. Every day I do that. I never jump through a table. It's probably because I'm getting old. But he has like these back spasms, and even though he's like very injured, and he knows that he could have a career-ending injury while he's in high school, he still decides to continue to play. And his coach even says like, I almost allowed you to finish this game out, and that would have been really bad for me, and I would have made a really bad decision. And then later on, he gets back in the game anyway, and his coach is like, let him play. Let him do what he wants to do. You know, it's, well, I guess you didn't almost make that decision. You made it. You let him play. So there's bad decisions made here, but he ends up saving, at the end of the movie, he ends up like actually being the hero of the game. Which I guess it's great that he could still play with that hurt back. But he was the star of the movie to me. Like, Ryoto's backstory is great. Ryoto's character is someone that you can root for. But that redhead, man, he was the star. He stole the show. Thought he was the best character in the whole movie. And this is not I knew nothing about this movie, this manga, this television show before I watched the first Slam Dunk, so I don't know if he's like normally a popular character or like a main character, or if he's even in any of the other stuff. But he's definitely stole the show in this one. I thought he was great. But anyway, for a basketball movie, I thought it was good. I've not seen a ton of basketball movies, I would say, but I thought it was good considering I'm not a huge fan of the sport anyway. But I will give it an 8 out of 10. I hope you join me next time when I review a movie called I Like Movies. Thank you. Have a great day.